Hey, so in this session what we're going to look at is how to create hard surface features and parts, a little bit like what you can see on here inside of 3ds Max. So using Boolean workflows and my own custom sort of cutting tool that's really good for hard surface modeling. So we'll get into it right now. Okay, so we'll just jump in. So this is a custom hard surface tool that I've made myself. So we just create a cube, something like this in here, and then can jump into the actual box itself. You know, sort of, I suppose this is more like the, you know, the parametrical elements of it that sort of make it up. So we can position this, and what I like to do, you know, is come through, create something. There's different ways that you can cut in Max. You can use a lot of the Boolean features anyway and cut, and you'll see me manually switch. This tool here just optimizes like the workflow quite a lot for me. So we've got a decent shape here. What I can do is just jump into sort of this view here, so you know, like the front view or something, and we can bring in a rect. I can just grab that and we can just put it to you know, surface area like so. We can change the sort of cut, if you like. So the red is now the cut here, so we can, so you know, change that length. Yeah, I can make this maybe a little bit bigger, something like that. And then what we can do is just subtract that there. I'll do on the main shape itself as well. Let's add a symmetry modifier, so we can have this sort of down here. And then what I can do now is because I'm working non-destructively, you know, I can always come back into these cuts and, you know, I can sort of edit them, and with this one in particular, you know, we can jump into the edit here. So the little blue line here, it gives you access to this cut. So what I could do now is add a chamfer modifier to this, and I can create some really nice features. So I could come in here and, you know, maybe make this a little bit bigger there, and we'll just smooth it out a little bit more. And if I just turn off, you know, the wireframe there, let's use G on the grid, you know, get rid of that grid, you can see there we've got a really sort of nice hard surface cut in there. There's some more tools that I use as well. So I've got a 45 degree. I'm really keen on this. I love this for hard surface stuff. So what I can do with this is, you know, I can bring this kind of over here like so we can get it quite nice. I can change the chamfer as well with it as well. So with the tool, it just asks that, you know, your current cutter, you just change to whatever the cutter is. So in my case, you know, it's this box 2 is going to be the cutter now. And then what I can do in here is we can change sort of the length or width. So it's going to be width in this case here. So let's just change that to be something like that. And then I can also just adjust this chamfer as well, so we can actually increase the size of that, so we get a bit more of a cut along here. So if I just come through, and you know, you can already see that cut's going to look pretty good. I'm just going to move the edge off there, so we get a really nice sort of detailed cut along there. Maybe we can push that a little bit more. Let me just chop that edge off there. Let's increase that size, really push this cut, and then we can subtract. We should be able to subtract that. There we go. And we've got a really nice, you know, another little bit of detail. And again, you know, I could push this in. One thing that I like to do as well with this workflow is add, you know, chamfer to this. So we can come in here, can add like a chamfer. And then what I'm testing for the chamfer here is, like, you know, you'll get little overlaps or areas within the geometry itself, so the cut geometry. So some features like this you'll have to change or move around, or put an edit poly on maybe, just to get that detail. I can just control that chamfer there. And you know, it depends what this is for. You know, for games, if we're looking at maybe for games and stuff, you might want to, let's add a weighted normals modifier just to clean up the topology, the shading a little bit there. But for games, yeah, you're going to want to probably, you know, increase this polish amount a little bit, because you want the bakes in there. For this work, you could maybe be a bit more stringent with it. You know, you could turn it down a little bit more, have them a bit cleaner. But you can see here where there's some issues caused by the geometry. I genuinely favour the Radial chamfer. I think that it gives us better results, and because I'm not worried about like topology or n-gons or anything on the surface there, it's giving me some really nice results, and it seems to have fixed almost this area, the shading area. So what I would do, I'd come back into the Boolean operation here, so you can see it's this sort of this corner here. So what we do is jump back into the Boolean. Let's grab maybe this tool here, and if we just offset that a little bit more in, that chamfer should get in now without any issues. So that's pretty good going there. And we've got a really nice sort of shape starting to take shape. There's more features and stuff you can do. So I've got some more tools in here. We'll sort of go through as well. Just have a little look. Okay, so we've cut that in. Angle. So we can create a angle if we want to. We've got you know, these different sort of things. Prism's pretty good. We can create a prism. And you know, this is quite good for larger angles. I just put little notes on here where they spawn. So some of them spawn at camera space, some of them sort of like world space and stuff. So yeah, I can just come through now. Let's put our angle snap on there and grab that. Let's set it to 90, and then we can just get the sort of angle we're sort of going for. So maybe something like there. We can just bring this in. I'm currently on local. We'll switch that to view, like maybe something like that. And then again, if you've not got it selected there, current cutter, you know, it's already got this selected, so that's fine. We can subtract that there, and we've got a nice sort of cut. And I should be able to come in as well and move this. So say if we want something like that, we can do that. And then maybe what I'll do is I might push this a little bit more. So this is where maybe I'd switch back to local, and you know, I can just push this out a little bit more and create sort of a clean cut. You can see here it's updating quite quickly, you know, which is pretty good, pretty handy. So we've got a really nice cut there. And then, you know, we could do something again with a rect. So maybe we'll get the rect here. Let's push this on to about here. We'll change that sort of length again. Just grab that, increase this a little bit, just push it off ever so slightly, something maybe like that. I think we'll have to bring this down a little bit more, and then again, you know, just make sure that's there, and then we can subtract. I've got a really nice sort of piece of detail and geometry holding up for this. It's pretty cool. You don't have to have everything connected into one as well. You know, we can add things to it. You know, you can add other models in here and things. So really nice. And you know, if this is going to be like, you know, an armor piece, or it's part of a mech or something, it makes the workflow just so much more easier. Circle's always good. So let's grab this. You know, we can bring this on, and you know, maybe something here. Let's increase that radius a little bit. You know, something like that. You can actually merge these like this as well, so you can get these sort of like, you know, like this here. So you can make these a bit bigger. Check the wireframe, and then again, just with the wireframe, just make sure that, you know, these aren't sort of overlapping too much, because you want that room for the chamfers to get in. So you can see here with that. So maybe just push this sort of in the middle there, and we've got a nice sort of setting. And then we go to the extrude, and what I can do is I'll just increase that size just to make sure it gets over there, and then we can do, you know, a union on that, and then just check to make sure the chamfer's okay. Now with this, if you wanted to increase sort of the res on that, I mean, that's not bad. We've got decent res there, but you can increase the res. So we can go back to operations, we can select this, and in here we can actually increase that res if we wanted to. Just be mindful though, you know, if you're gonna start increasing the res, you might get issues with this where it overlaps. You can cut these out as well, so we can extract the operation there if we wanted to, and you know, it'll save the tool as it is. And again, you know, you can see where the resolution's increasing, but we're in danger of sort of just overlapping a little bit there. So just keep that in mind. Other things that we can do, you know, we can clone this piece. So we could get this piece here, and my eyes deceive me at the moment. Let me just grab that. Let's see. There we go. Clone. So just do it as a copy. I'll jump in here. Let's move the copy out. We'll just decrease this a little bit, and then what I can do is add a taper effect on here. So let's just have a look. I can taper that quite nicely. So it's sort of coming out there. I'll have to maybe just come in here and just decrease it a little bit more to get nice taper. You know, similar things where you typically see these in you know, your hard surface stuff. That's pretty good. We could change the extrusion amount as well, which should help bring this taper a little bit closer to the edge there. So something, I reckon, like that. We can clone this again as a copy. All right, just remove the taper. So we've got that central bit here, because we use this as a cut as well in a moment's time. So let's change the circle on here. So we'll just shrink that down to about there. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the cutter to this, so it should be on. We can union that back together now, so we know that works. I'll just check the chamfers on that as well, so that's okay. We're going to select this piece. We're going to pick that, and we're going to union those together as well. So if we have a look at the piece now, and then what we want to do is we want to get this piece, and again we'll just increase that size there, and we'll use this as the cutter now, but we'll subtract it. And there we go, we've got a really nice sort of shape that's been built up there. It's all attached in, you've got a really nice hard surface shape. And then we can go, you know, sort of one better here. We can connect another sort of area on, if you like, from here. So again, we can do a rect box, we can bring that sort of to the edge here. And, you know, we can move this into a position, maybe like this. Yeah, push it in maybe a little bit. Something like that. We could throw a edit poly on this, so we could do an edit poly. I'll just bring on the wireframe through, grab this edge here. Let's do view. Can move this up like so. So you can see here where we've got a problem where some of the geometry here, it's like, you know, popping through and stuff. So get that, just lower it down. We could cut it if we wanted to. We could cut it off, but it's not a problem. You know, we can sort of edit this a little bit. Let's just jump into here again. We can just push this sort of across to create that more of a steep drop off. Make sure that's okay. So again, just with my cutting tool, I've just got to make sure, you know, this is the cutter, and then we can do a union, and there we go. We've got a nice sort of piece now added on, and it's a lot of the hard surface stuff. It's about building up that understanding the geometry, if you like. So, you know, the large forms. You know, medium, going to smaller forms and stuff like that. So trying to build them up, and you know, there's other things that we can do here. So let's bring on the tool that we've got here. So we can bring that round to about here. And again, I really like this sort of, like, you know, the cutting angle. Like I said before, it's quite fun to use this. So use something like that, and then we'll just increase chamfer size. We need to jump into the box here, grab that, and it'll be height. To increase that height a little bit there, and you know, make sure the picker's on, and subtract that, and then we've got a really nice sort of shape on that edge that takes place, which is really cool. There's a few other tricks in here as well that I put together. So let's just come into this view. So what we could do, maybe, you know, we want some panel detail or something on. I probably wouldn't go into paneling at this time. You know, I'd carry on building up the forms, but for the purpose of the video, we'll skip a couple of steps. So we've got this, and what we can do is we can use a rectangle auto grid on. You know, roughly get this in sort of the middle here, something like this. Seems have we got a enable in render view? There we go. So we've got something like this. We can create sort of this sort of angle like so. You've got the corner radius as well, which is always quite nice. You can turn down those steps as well, so we can match sort of the features that are there, if you like. And again, you know, this is just if we move this thing, if we do it local, we should be able to just move that down a little bit more. Maybe increase that sort of length there a little bit as well. then what we can do is I'll add an extrude to this. We'll just, in actual fact, what I'll try to do is let's bring on the enabling viewport render. We'll change the length of that, and we will just reduce this down to something like this. Now, I think with these, with the viewport render stuff, I think you do have to cut these. Collapse them or convert them to an editable poly. I'll try it anyway. Let's just grab this to the right thickness. We'll do sort of its length. Let's reduce that down because we don't want it too deep. Something about there. So with this now, let's select my piece here, subtract, and yeah, there we go, it's worked. So you can see you've got some panel detail. Now, this is being caused because the thickness of this, you know, it's obviously overlapping a little bit. So what we'd have to do is just jump back into the Boolean operations there, grab this piece. Because I've got the chamfer on, it's sort of overlapping a little bit. So we can grab that. Let's jump into here. We should be able to increase the sort of thickness a little bit, and then maybe increase that length just to get like a nice sort of panel detail. You can see that where it's overlapping there. Get that nice sort of panel detailing in there. Maybe, you know, we can make it a little bit thicker. And there we go, we've got really nice sort of paneling added to the model now. So it's really starting to take quite a lot of shape, quite a nice shape really. You can add smaller features as well, so you know there's things in here that you can do. So you know other cuts and stuff. There's always like you know little circles and things. So again, just dependable on what it is you want to use. We use this, so we come in here. So again, everything in here can be created in here anyway. This is just for speed and efficiency for myself really. So let's go to maybe we'll do a rect again. Let's grab this one, and then what we'll do is we'll just jump into this. Let's turn off the render there. We'll do a corner and we'll increase that amount. Let's change the sort of length and width somewhat there. Let's have a look. So it just looks like the corner needs adjusting to compensate for that. So we'll just turn down the corner there a little bit. Have a look. Something like this, and then we can decrease that somewhat, bring it sort of to here. And again, you've got scale as well. We can scale some of these as well if we want to. It's not linked like parametrically to this, so you shouldn't get too many issues with it. Let's just bring sort of a cut in there. Make sure the cut here is on. Subtract that, and then we've got another little clip piece in there, which is pretty good. And again, wireframes looking pretty solid. Could probably actually reduce this down. It's quite big that chamfer, so we could reduce that down a little bit. Just get these a bit smaller there, maybe for some of the viz stuff. So yeah, it's looking a bit cleaner. Again, for games and that, you might want to just increase that size a little bit, but it's looks a little bit soft before, so I think that's maybe a little bit better. Keep it a bit cleaner. And yeah, we can cut in. Let's grab the prism here. This is quite good for angles as well, so we can just rotate this. Could use box, anything we want really. 90. Grab that. Let's bring it over here. We can scale this now a little bit. Give it a rotation, something like that. Bring this up, and again, just align it roughly to where I sort of want it. And change this a little bit. So let's just scale it sort of in here. again, a lot of this is just sort of aligning it up. So something like that, and then scale that. So hopefully the cut works. I mean, this is going to be quite tight on here, so see if that, you know, oops, see if this works. So make sure we got the prism picked. Probably just jump into that top view just to make sure the alignment's kind of where I want it. Yeah, so it's not going to overlap there. Let's just subtract that, and then there we go. We got that nice sort of drop detail. You know, typical you'd see in sort of hard surface stuff, where you got these nice little interlocking sections, if you like, which are pretty good. And you know, we could chamfer the next bit off as well. So you know, you could come through and chamfer little bits and pieces off, which is pretty good. Other things that we could do, I mean, you know, there's a lot in here. So if we just jump into the front view, so this is an orthographic, should be an orthographic view. Let's just check, yeah. So in the front view, you know, you got your line tool here. You don't necessarily have to auto grid this, but say, you know, for sort of paneling, similar to what we did before, but you know, you can sort of customize these a little bit more. So, you know, perhaps maybe we want, you know, some sort of panel detail going across. Let's use the extrude, something like that, and we'll do a shell, so we can push this out. Can move this off ever so slightly, like so, and we can just change that amount there. And we want something sort of like this, maybe. Yeah. Use again the cutter here, subtract. There we go. We've got some nice sort of paneling going on now across the model. Other combinations that I like to do with this kind of stuff is, you know, when I'm sort of in here, let's have a look. Is you can put in quite a lot. So if we grab a rectangle again, just kind of making sure like auto grids off there, and we can do sort of a rect here. Let's have a look. So I'll just bring on that wireframe just so I can see exactly what's going on. So perhaps maybe we want, I don't know, we want some nice sort of detail that runs across somewhere. So what I'll do is, let's just change this a little bit, something like that, and we can add the extrude onto here. So we just jump in perspective view, let's add this on just so we can see the sort of detail that's going to be created. Still think that's maybe a little bit big, but you know, maybe we could just scale it down a little bit, and then we can add an array modifier onto here. So it's going to, you know, stack those out. We'll do an offset by about, say, 1.5 maybe. I think 1.5 is pretty good. We're going to the original piece as well. So we've got the original piece here. You know, we can do an edit poly on this, and what we can do is we can move it locally. So we can actually move this that way, and it doesn't affect the array then. So then we've got that sort of detail there, and you know, maybe say like this piece here, or maybe along the top we want to cut. So just bring on that wireframe, just double check, you know, he's got the right amount of depth. We can just make sure, again, my cutter works, cut that, and then we've got that sort of detail now sort of taking shape and stuff, which is, it's quite nice. It's quite good to, you know, use. Yeah, we can add parts in as well. It doesn't need to be all one piece. I mean, typically with the hard surface stuff, you know, a lot of this mechanical design, it's like, you know, cast metal stuff, and it's really popular in like sci-fi things. So with this, good for 3D printing as well. So here, you know, we can, if we just jump into that front view, we'll grab a cylinder here. So let's just have a look. So we've got that cylinder. What we can do is we can extract operation again. Let's just create a clone of it, so we can create that clone there. All right. With this now, let's make sure we've got something picked, and we do the subtract again. So we've got that gap there now, and then what we can do is we can create, you know, that bit of a interior. I don't know, maybe it's a mechanism that moves or rotates or something. So we can create that in here. We've got the you know, the extension there. So we can sort of bring bring that round like so. Let's just get this about right. So we want it so here, it's something like that. Let's just go into that front and something here. So again, that looks all right. So we've got something like that. And then what we could do is, we could add a chamfer, change the chamfer to quad. We've got a really, really nice sort of bit of detail, and then we can, maybe make this a little bit stand out a little bit more. Just want it like sort of there. Grab the views. Oops, there we go. And we've got another sort of piece or a part to it. You could build it up, add different sort of materials on this, and again, you can with the cuts that we've been using, I can change this now. So my script here, it updates. So what I could do is now we're active on this. So what it's going to check for as well is, does this object have like a Boolean and stuff like that on there? So if not, we can add one. So what we can do is we can put Boolean on there. Okay, so we've got a Boolean operation now, and then what we can do is maybe create some detail as well around this that goes onto it. So if we just jump into that front view really quickly, we can grab a sort of we'll grab a rectangle here. So we can grab that. So. Again, we can create this sort of detail. Just adjust these a little bit. Let's get it sort of like that, and then just get this down. Maybe we want this. Oops, want this to be cut in from here. So again, just try to be mindful of where things are. So on this, I definitely want to reduce that down to 0 because I don't want any sort of chamfers in there. So what I'm looking for now is, if we just jump into this view, is I don't want it to sort of overlap because it'll mess up some of the detail here. So we're going to be very, very cautious on sort of how this aligns up to the geometry, because otherwise I'm going to have to go in and sort of edit a little bit. So if we can just get it roughly where it cuts out some of these, makes my life a little bit easier. So we've got something like that, and then we could jump in here. We'll try an array. We'll try the radial array. So it's going from that point. So again, what we could do is maybe I think in actual fact, maybe not an array, we could try symmetry on here, and there is radial symmetry as well, and we can actually change the mirror line there, which is pretty good, and we should be able to increase the count as well. So something like this, it's pretty good. I think we're going to get issues on that. I think the cuts are going to be good on that, so something like this. Yeah, I think something like that. So again, just making sure that's selected, and let's just have a look. So hopefully this subtracts. So let's just make sure we've got mesh here, got a should be able to pick that and subtract. Okay, seems to be going back to this one. So what I'll have to do is grab this here, and we'll set this up manually on there. So there we go. So we've got that sort of manually in there now, which is pretty cool. With it as well, so if we do go to the operations and we grab the rect here, so we've got mirror extrude as well. With this we can sort of increase or decrease it as well. So depending on what you want there, which is I think it's pretty good. And then we've got the rectangle sort of size as well, so we can bring these in. You can have something a little bit more cut in or something like that maybe. which is pretty good. With this piece as well, what we should be able to do is add its own chamfer. So let's just have a look. So we're going to fix this a little bit. Let's change the metering type to radial. So we can have a look here, see how we get on with this. Might have to manually do this, you know, it doesn't always work. Have maybe a little chamfer on that as well, and then with the weighted normals on there. There we go, got a nice sort of extra hard surface sort of bit on there. Let's bring up the material editor. We can just drag that on. We'll replace it. There we go. So this bit now, it's not attached to anything, but you know, it's doing its job there in sort of adding that extra detail and stuff as well, which is pretty cool. Other bits we can do, again, you know, we can look to maybe extend the front or put more paneling on, different features at the side, possibly maybe do some more cuts down here. So if we grab our cut here, let's just bring this across. Again, it's just about trying to create that sort of detail in here. So let's do sort of adjust this a little bit, bring sort of this in here. I reckon that's all right, and then we'll jump into the box and let's just see. Let's increase that height, bring that down to about there. I think that's going to be okay. So we'll choose this one. Just make sure this one's picked as well. So we've got that, and then subtract, and there we go. We've got a sort of a really nice sort of cut there now, which is awesome. That's really nice. Probably could do with some cuts along here as well. So we probably want some cuts here. So let's create another one. In actual fact, what we can do as well is we can reuse cuts from here. So what another technique that I like to do is, you know, go into my operations here. There's a lot of these. They start to stack up, and again, you know, we had surface stuff. It will be made up of multiple parts. It's not all necessarily going to be linked like this. So you're going to have quite a lot of parts that make it up anyway. But these can get a bit complex. So let's just have a look here. So what I can do now is hold Shift. You see, just struggling to update a little bit there, so we can turn off some of these chamfers and stuff, and then what we can do is just try and get this in here, get that like that. That's pretty good, I reckon. Just maybe push it out a little bit more, just conscious of this chamfer getting sort of like busted. So we've got that, and then we can deselect these. Let's have a look on that chamfer there now. So that's yeah, detail's holding up quite nice there. That's quite nice little cut on there. Could probably do another one down here as well along this bit. So let's just we'll turn off those chamfers. Could turn off the symmetry as well, just to speed things up. Operation. I think it was. Let's have a look. Where am I? So I think it was further up. So you got to have a good memory for this. I suppose you could name the cuts as well, you know, if you wanted to, you can name them. So we've got another piece, so again, we can copy that across. So just holding Shift there, and then we can just sort of get that in, and then you see, well, you can see this working now quite well. Probably just try and cut this to about, maybe about there. So you got, what I'm looking for is, again, it's just that interference with how is this going to affect the chamfer. So the idea here is you don't really want to get into too much manual sort of editing. So we can bring this maybe to about here, like so. That's done a nice cut for us along that edge there. So we'll just double check what those effects are, and yeah, you can see there the detail. I mean, like, to model that in, it'd be pretty tough. Can increase the res on this as well. We can see that's a bit low res, could increase it. Might even drop that chamfer a little bit, sort of a little bit more there as well, just to really tighten things up, I think. Yeah, it's looking quite good. I'm quite pleased up to now with the sort of results there. Other things, let's see. So I suppose that's sort of the basics of it. There's yeah, there's a lot more we can sort of do with this stuff, and you know we can really yeah do quite a bit. So let's have a look. The channel one's pretty good as well. So I like this one. You can get this in. You know, a bit of extra sort of overlapping detail if you like. So we've got this here. Let's just bring it to about here. Again, you could change the size of this. It doesn't need to be, you know, what it is here. So let's change the thickness a little bit. And then what we can do is just make sure the channel's on. We've got box 1, you know, subtract that. And you got that all the overlapping sort of detail now that's taking place. And you know, again, if we use Control Z, go back, you know, these essentially could potentially run off. So we got the length, I think width, so here, like so. So we can get these running off here. I think that'll be good. Maybe like that, or maybe there. Let's subtract it and we'll see. There you go. And then, you know, with the operation here, we can just jump in, we can select it, and then we can, you know, we can move it about. When it's getting a bit busy like this, again, just you can switch everything off just to try and speed it up a little bit more. So it just depends. I mean, I'm recording as well now, but usually the, you know, 3ds Max, it holds up quite well. So again, we can bring these back on, sort of have a look and move that sort of to here. And there we go, got some nice sort of line, sort of panel detail on the side. There's different, obviously you've got different ones. I mean, we've been cutting quite a lot, but you can add like you know, unions and things like that as well to this. What we could do as well with this is, you know, you can come in here. We've got the extrusion on. We can add a chamfer on this. We'd have to turn it down a little bit. So let's just turn that chamfer down. You can see where you can sort of get these rounded sort of shapes there. Not working the best on that in terms of the corner detail and stuff, but yeah, you can get these really sort of nice sort of shapes. We can increase the chamfer amount, so it just puts a sort of a bit of a nicer sort of channel in there, which breaks it up a little bit. So maybe some sort of piping or something like that. Which is pretty good, you know, for it and stuff. So yeah, quite nice. And yeah, you know, we can add other bits in. So if we just jump into the view here, let's grab this one. You know, perhaps maybe, you know, we want something in where it's connected or it's joined on, so a bit more paneling. We can add you know, different effects to this. We could, in actual fact, we could taper it first. So do a taper. Let's have a look. Maybe just bring that amount out. Reduce the sort of extrusion. We can just sort of play around with this now. So, you know, little pieces like this you often see little pieces sort of supportive of the design. So something like that, and you know, make sure that's picked, and we can union that on, which is pretty good. It's got sort of a nice sort of bit of detail there, which is good. You can sort of do all that and sort of build it up and stuff. Yeah, so pretty good stuff. I mean, so that's kind of my workflow. Obviously, you know, it's a bit of a long video and stuff on this one. But it's a good exercise. It's good practice to try and come up with, you know, your different design features and what it is you wanna sort of create and stuff. I'd be interested to hear if any of you guys do tools. Do any of you guys make tools or anything like that? Let's put auto grid on there. What I'll do is just turn off my chamfer for now. Just jump back in here, grab our rect, and then maybe something. We want a bit of piece up here. Runs to this bit here or something. But yeah, you know, it'd be interesting to see what tools or what shortcuts you do. I mean, 3ds Max, like a lot of programs, is really customizable now. So there's a lot of things you can sort of do in here. You know, with the menus and stuff, you don't necessarily have to know any scripting or Mac script or whatever. You know, you can customize the menus and stuff like that as well, which is always sort of handy. So we can bring maybe this piece up here, and then what I could do with this as well, we can give it a bit more of a unique shape as well now. So let's do an edit poly on here. You know, we can grab the edges. Let's put a few connects in. Like so. Just grab something maybe like that. That looks quite interesting, I think. And you know, maybe what we could do is we could probably sort of bake this chamfer into it. So let's just have a look. Get rid of that one. Let's see, is it looking at kind of how this is holding up. That's pretty good. Okay, so let's grab that piece and union it. We can just see what we get with the chamfer there as well. That looks all right, yeah. Little piece of geometry on there. Let's create another sort of cut here. So we'll do a cylinder. Let's just jump in. Something along here. So get it like that. Bring on the wireframe. Again, I'm just sort of looking here. Don't want to, you know, cause myself too much of a headache. Sort of the cuts and stuff. So just being extra cautious. These don't overlap. Something like that. Yeah, cylinder's been selected, so subtract that. And again, you could sort of see the speed here, where you know you can really get into this sort of stuff. And I suppose that's why I created this tool as well. It's just, you know, it's so nice just to be able to just jump in and sort of create these boxes and things, and you know you can really sort of speed things up. So again, you know, you don't necessarily, I don't always have to come in here. I do like to use these because the scaling's not off. So you know, it's just I suppose dependent on what it is I'm doing, like how fast I want to model and stuff. So we've got this piece. Let's do edit poly. You know, we can grab that. Chamfer this again. We'll keep off that there. Probably let's push this down here a little bit as well. Maybe push that a little bit away from that. Make sure that's picked and union that as well. So just looking here, making sure maybe we bring that up a little bit. So let's just grab that, bring it up. There we go. Bring it up. Yeah, I think that's probably the best shout there. So getting all that little build up of sort of detail and stuff on here. So it's starting to look pretty good. I mean, I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it's starting to look pretty good. It's sort of like maybe it's a Radial clip or something. Bit of I don't know. Yeah, bit of something, right? So again, probably cuts. You probably want some cuts along here as well. So you could do like, you know, grab the 45 tool. Let's do this. So probably, you know, do we cut in sort of along here for this one. Let's do height, width. So grab that one. Do the same on this side as well. So we can grab something there. We have to make this bit a little bit sort of bigger. So there we go. Just get it down to about here. So we'll grab the first one. So we've got the box here, and then we'll subtract that. So there we go. So that's pretty good. And then we've got this piece. Just grab that and subtract that as well. So we've got some nice sort of rails in there, which is pretty good. I'll change that last one a little bit. I'll just drop that down a little bit, maybe, so it's a bit cleaner. Yeah, something there. Maybe what we'll do is extract operation. I'll just do a bit of an edit on this. So try and make the chamfer a little bit sort of cleaner there on that edge. I think a bit more prominent, I suppose. It's a bigger area, so we kind of want it maybe a bit deeper as well. Something like there. Yeah, there we go. I think that looks much better. That looks quite nice. So smaller areas, yeah, smaller pieces, and you know, if we've got quite wide areas there like that, and it's quite nice to get them sort of on there and stuff, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so we'll keep modeling, I suppose. That's what we've got to do. At any point, you know, the good thing about this is, say, you know, you want to change the design, or there's something that's doesn't quite sit, you know, quite right with it. You know, you can always come back in, and we can always edit some of these. So we can jump into the operations. You know, we can grab this piece here, and what we can do is just cut it out if it's not, you know, if it's not suitable. So there's always, you know, different things that you might want to do, or you might not want to do. And again, you know, you can move these in. You know, we could cut that in a bit more. You know, take it out. So there's always different sorts of things that we can sort of experiment with and sort of do this when, you know, you're creating this stuff. Yeah, and then, you know, some of the smaller detail, you know, again, might be worth just using sort of these, like, you know, some circles and things, and some smaller rectangles, and that way you can, you know, you might want to grab this bit. For example, you know, if we do an extrude on here, we obviously don't want it set to there, but something like that's probably sort of acceptable. And you know, we can copy these around and stuff. Maybe stuff like this. Put it on each sort of corner area there, like that. Maybe we have one there as well. Do that one over here. So just getting my sort of cuts ready, just to sort of, you know, cut this in. So for this, again, because we have got the Boolean here, we should be able to just come through and subtract anyway. So I can click this, so it's a bit sort of faster in that sense to do that, rather than use my sort of own tool. So a bit quicker there, just to get those bits and pieces in. And yeah, that's what it's about now. It's about, like, you know, adding the sort of final sort of the finer detail and things. And again, this is where I'll probably start switching it up a little bit, and just looking for areas and thinking, like, oh, you know, it'd be good if maybe sort of this piece here, this was maybe, you know, cut in. So what we could do here now is do a sort of corner radius like that. We'll do a you know, an extrude like so. So sort of cut that in. Doesn't have to be too sort of too deep. Something like this. We can do the tool here. We've got that. Subtract. There we go. A nice little cut in there now. So, you know, blending that shape between the hard edges with the curves is always quite nice. Maybe it's like a little catch or a little handle or something, a little attachment thing, where something needs to go, you know, in there. And as I say, you know, not everything needs to be connected, as the example here. So not every single piece needs to be connected. You know, for example, maybe this piece could be its own sort of panel piece if you wanted. It could be, you know, something that comes out. Could do with some circles on though, I reckon. Let's just get rid of that one. What we'll do is we'll put in sort of from here like that, and again we can add that, you know, extrusion. Set quite something like that. Could you push this down? Select the model. Let's select the Boolean operation, and we can subtract and subtract. And there we go. We got like a nice sort of grid detail in there now. So again, you can see where I'm flipping between the workflows now. I'm kind of using my tool, but it's getting a bit easier now to sort of, whilst I'm detailing, sort of come back to the 3ds Max like default settings and default tool sort of processes. So I just kind of flip through. I definitely think these could do some cuts along here, definitely. But I think we're getting there with this piece. Just got to be patient, sort of take your time. One thing that might be pretty cool is maybe what we could do is if we jump in here, we've got an arc. We should be able to. We just grab that. Let's turn off the grid snap. So we do maybe from about here to here. Let's have a look. Put on wireframe. I think. From here, I have to have it about there. So try that again. It's quite hard to get because I want it sort of like down sort of here following this. If we do it from here about here, it's pretty. Have a look. I don't really like it, to be honest. What we could do is, rather than mess around with that, I mean, we have got this piece here, so what I could do is we could create a clone of this, okay, create as a copy. So I've got the clone selected here. I can get rid of all these other bits that we don't need, so let's just have a look. So I can get rid of these bits, I think, delete them, delete the chamfer. So we've got an extrusion on that, so I could potentially delete that as well. Let's bring on the wireframe, let's have a look, disable rendering view. And what I'm hoping for is that we'll be able to do a cut from this, like round there. So if I do the radius, there we go. So I've got the sort of same arc now. That's pretty good. And then I think if we do the render view, so I'm hoping this works. And let's just change that sort of width on that. So something like there. And we should be able to push that in a little bit at least. We've got that sort of shape now. So it's got to. Needs to go in enough so the chamfer works and stuff. So we've got a nice shape there. So let's do a picker on that and subtract. And there we go. We've got a sort of a nice sort of arch now around that area. A nice cut, and it goes to here, so it looks quite nice. Nice and supportive there of that. So that's pretty cool. Could chamfer it as well, like we did before. Definitely. Could chamfer that, which is pretty good. Other bits of detail that we want. So we're focusing on smaller bits now. So let's do some sort of like smaller pieces and smaller parts of the detail and stuff. So that's pretty nice there. Nice cut. Could possibly these need editing. They need cutting. So let's use. 45. Let's grab this, just bring it over really quickly. I can get that to sort of here. Adjust that. I think it'd be length. There we go. Adjust that. That'll be okay. We can grab that as well. Let's do it as a copy. Could do these as instances as well. So the update for the cut there. I'm going to just make these a little bit more extreme. Let's bring that in, and the same for this one. Doesn't need to be the same angle, but something sort of like that, maybe. can grab that one. Let's pick, subtract, and then we've got this one. So let's pick that one and subtract as well. So let's get that nice little cut shape to them, which is pretty nice. Sort of these areas quite flat, so might be best off just coming in with sort of a rectangle here. Maybe just grabbing something along there. Whoops. Put the auto grid on. We'll change that because we don't want the render view on. So we can have, you know, something here along this edge. And again, this is sort of like, you know, starting to sort of experiment, blend the shapes a little bit. So with this one, let's just change the corner radius there a little bit as well. We could try and cut it in a bit sharper if we wanted to. So we do an extrusion on that. Don't need nothing too major, so we can have it sort of here. Let's have a look. That's quite nice, yeah. So just added that in quite nicely there. Nice little feature on that bit. Could put some little features here as well. Could potentially extend that actually. So could if we just go back and we adjust sort of that width there, you know, could potentially have that just sort of run along here on that piece. So just make sure my cut is picked. And there we go. So we got that detail that's sort of interchanging there, which is pretty nice, pretty good, you know. And again, yeah, hopefully you're getting ideas, and you know, if this was you know, a weapon system, or you know, you're doing a mech or something like that, you can sort of build these parts up really effectively. Again, you know, it depends what it's for. You know, for viz work, you should be able to render this and yeah, have a nice render and stuff of it. You know, if it's for games, obviously you've got to do the base mesh. The good thing is though, off here, you've got a lot to work with already on the poly counts and stuff. There's already quite a lot in there that you can work with. So again, we can just jump into here. Start with the rect tool there. I'll do a cut sort of along this bit. Let's do nice sort of cut here. Do something like that. We'll do an extrusion modifier. There we go. Got that, and then if I do a chamfer, just have a look on here. You can see how that's going to look. So nice sort of like a nice groove in there. Something like that. And that'll look pretty cool. Just make sure I've picked that, subtract it. I've got a nice sort of shape as well in there. Could put some grooves in there possibly as well. Could maybe add some extra features onto that area as well. But it's starting to shape up, you know, it's starting to look pretty good. It's not took too long at the moment. It's a nice concepted piece, you know, a lot of features on there, a lot of different things. You know, can extend some of this out a little bit as well, you know, you push some areas about and stuff and tweak it. But yeah, I mean, that's not bad. What we on time wise? So almost on an hour with this. So nice activity really for about an hour. I'll try and do a bit more, add a bit more features on. Let's actually get rid of that. So I could definitely put some more panel lines or something. One thing that I didn't show you as well with this is it's quite good at adding sort of like deep lines as well. Quite good. So if we just put this in to sort of here, we change sort of that width. Let's bring that right up there. I think so. Make sure this is the cutter now. Something like that, and then reduce that down. Puts in some nice sort of line work. So if we subtract that now, like these really nice sort of thick panel lines. I mean, that's why I love that little tool. It's just so good. It's yeah, it just puts in, you know, so much detail in terms of the work and stuff. I think this piece needs cutting as well, so that needs sort of cutting here. So let's just grab this. Again, we can just try and line that up. Just increase that chamfer quite a bit there. Just try my best just to see it via the view, so something like that. And we'll get a nice cut on that bit as well. Don't necessarily have to go to the top, but you know, we get all the same, we'll get a good cut. So if we do maybe to about here, we get a good cut there. So pick the cutter, subtract, and we'll see what we get. So yeah, I think that's quite nice. I like that, a little bit of detail. I think maybe if we go back actually, Control Z, maybe if we just move that up a little bit, it'll look a bit more uniform. The cut, you can have a look. Yeah, so that's pretty good, like that. It's getting some nice sort of panel detail. Obviously we want the same as well for sort of here, so let's just go back and we can use this piece as well to do it as a copy, something like there. I think, yeah, do we want it all the way? Yeah, I think, yeah, we'll go for it. Let's go for it all the way. So let's just grab this piece, subtract, and grab this one, box cutter, the box, yeah, in here, subtract that as well. So I think I've gone a bit too much with that one. So let's just jump into the top view just so we can see what it's going to cut. So I think it was that corner that I wanted. I'll just have a look there. So because it's got different sort of stacks on. So I think maybe what we could do actually is just make this a little bit bigger and just give it a bit more, make it sort of like that, maybe increase that sort of chamfer amount there. Could work. I'll see what it looks like. I mean, you know, we don't know, do we, until we sort of get it on. Visuals are going to look like, so it's almost going into there. What we might be able to do is grab it in the Boolean. So let's just turn off these bits and pieces and grab it there just to speed things up a little bit. Maybe we can just push it in ever so slightly. So let's just see. I think that's a little bit better now. So we can deselect that. Let's grab the other stuff on here. Yeah, that's a much better sort of angle there now. Building up quite a lot of detail. Other things we could do is where you can support some of these cuts as well with this. So we could grab these, and you know, we could put, you know, extra panel detail or cuts in like we've got here. So for example, maybe you know, we want this to be cut in a little bit. So what we could do is just reduce that down. Let's make this a little bit thinner. Just push it sort of to here, like so. Something like there. Again, we could look to decrease the chamfer a little bit on that one. You know, and if need to, we can always just scale as well. Use that scale. Got like a nice sort of cut there, and should be able to create a bit of a sort of panel in there. You see there where you got that extra sort of detail on there as well now. So it is starting to shape up, you know, starting to look quite good. There's quite a lot of interesting sort of features on here now. Not quite sure what to do with this area. I think it might be good to try and do a bit of a sort of like an out section for this, maybe. I don't know. We can have a look. So I think if we find that circle, we can extract operation. So it'll think about it for a moment, but it's done it for us, which is pretty good. We can clone it. So let's do the clone first. I'll set that as the piece we want, and then we can subtract that. So we've got that in position anyway. And then I suppose what we'd have to do is maybe slice it, I think. So in here as well, we'd have to maybe increase that size there a little bit. And then I reckon the slice modifier would be excellent on this. So let's just have a look here and remove negative. You can always cap those holes a little bit later on. So let's just move and push this into roughly where we kind of want it. I suppose it's going to be that edge. I mean, this is just, you know, thought. I don't think it might not necessarily work out. So if I have a look here, just depends on what this chamfer is going to look like. Maybe we could have it to about here. Might look good there. And then if we do the Y one as well, so we do that to about, I'd say about there maybe. Okay, cool. So we've got a slice on there. Let's jump back into perspective. It's quite large, the tool. What we could do is put a cap holes on. Let's just shove this in here. What I'm going to do is just adjust that length as well a little bit, bring it in, and then I don't know whether we'd get away with a taper on this. I don't know whether this would work. I don't think it will. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's a bit awkward, the taper there. So let's just get rid of that, and maybe what we go for is a chamfer or something. If we do a quad chamfer, reduce that down, give it a bit of a something like that. Maybe we'll just reduce that cut section down there and just see. Look bad. I'm not sure what it'll look like with the chamfers on. You know, let's we'll try. Let's grab that and I subtracted it, haven't I? I think. Oops, no. So we've got the tool selected. Pick that. Maybe try union. We'll see what we get. So that's not bad. Kind of sticks out a little bit. Some issues there with this piece. It's a little bit too close, I think, to the edge there. So let's press. Let's go back. I think maybe we'll have to get away with that on there. So you can union that. Stick it on. I think. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's not too bad. Not too bad. And yeah, we want some interesting side features, don't we? We want something sort of here and maybe here, just to sort of get yeah, make it look a little bit cooler. So let's see, what we could do is maybe we'll create the prism. Let's bring this over here. Again, really good for sort of large cuts, this. So we can grab that. Let's rotate. Oops. Rotate it maybe like that. Something where, you know, we get this and we just sort of stuck in a little bit to this side bit. Something like this. Like maybe there, maybe that'll look pretty cool. You know, we could try with the chamfer on it and see what we get. You know, change the amount there and do the segments. So we can pick the cutter, subtract, and there we go. We've got a sort of a nice sort of shape now taken up there. It's pretty cool. Nice sort of bit of detail. Just got to make sure the chamfer on here does have its min and max settings correctly set up for that. That's quite nice with the weighted normals as well. So like quite nice fall off on that, which is pretty good. It's always good to sort of get those those sort of shapes in there. There's other ones you could do as well, like, you know, say if we jump in here and we do the rect, and, you know, we bring this in here, can sort of scale that, you know, quite large sort of shapes. Should be able to rotate. I'll just scale that a little bit as well. So we've got like a bit of a gradual fall off. Add that chamfer. Increase the amount stupendously there. So we've got a nice sort of soft sort of shape that should fall off. In actual fact, we'll keep it in sort of line, in sync with the other one there. So we probably have to scale that a little bit as well. So something maybe like that, I reckon. We'll see what it looks like. So again, just subtract that, and then we've got another nice sort of indentation there. Again, maybe it's for, you know, to hold it or something, or, you know, get your sort of I don't know, maybe a catch or something. So I think that looks pretty decent. Can always come back in as well. You know, we can always grab this piece. I'll just switch off these sections just to move it about a bit. And just pull it out. I mean, I am recording now, so my computer is starting to die. It's been over bit what was it, over an hour, so not too bad. Let's have a look on that. Yeah, just soften it up a little bit there. That's quite nice. Let's turn off the grid. Have a look at what we've got and what we've created. Right, okay, so I'm gonna leave this video here. Yeah, you know, stay tuned. I plan on doing like more sort of mech stuff and things like that in the future. So we'll have a good sort of yeah, bash up of these items and stuff. And as I say, it's good practice for me. It keeps me sharp. It keeps me thinking on my design techniques and what I'm doing. It'd be really interesting, as I say, in the comments. You know, do you use any tools? Is there anything in 3ds Max that you're currently using for hard surface stuff? Be really interested to hear your thoughts and opinion on my techniques and the sort of workflows that I use and implement. Yeah, and, you know, give us a follow, guys, and a thumbs up, and I'll catch you in the next video, or I'll see you in the comments.